Okay, so today we'll be reading Big Red S. So in the last chapter, Counting and Skimming, we saw Fern and Delphine kind of staying to themselves, and instead of playing with the other kids, and they were counting newspapers, and Delphine was trying not to read the newspapers, but she ended up doing it anyway. That night, Fern complained about her aching stomach. She meowed and howled in her sleep. "Go sit on the toilet," I told her. She clung to my side, meowing and howling. Vanetta yelled, "Quit it, Fern. I can't sleep." I want you guys to think, do you guys like Vanetta right now? Because right now I'm kind of annoyed with her. I paid her no mind, and neither did Fern. If Fern didn't sleep, then we all couldn't sleep. Too bad for Vanetta and too bad for me. I just let Fern carry on while I rubbed her stomach. It took a while, but finally she fell asleep. Before we left the center in the morning, I asked Cecile for food money for tonight's dinner. I could hold on to $200. If I could hold on to $200 for over 3,000 miles, I could hold on to a $10 bill for a few hours. Cecile didn't bother asking any questions. She gave me the $10 bill and a door key, so she wouldn't have to jump up to get up and let us in. I think anyone standing at her front door made her jumpy. Even though we ate on the floor in the living room, I'd catch her eyes shift to the door when she heard a noise. Maybe she thought the Panthers were coming back to bother her for more ink and paper. I was glad Cecile handed up money with no mustard questions. That saved me from lying about getting shrimp lo mein when I had no intention of going to Ming's. Vanetta, Fern, and I had eaten our last plate of shrimp lo mein and egg rolls for the rest of our crazy summer. Shrimp and noodles, swimming in sauce, and deep-fried egg roll had taken its toll on us. Not that Lady Ming would cry over for her three-colored girls. She had other customers to yell at. All day at the center, I could think of nothing else but a home-cooked meal. We marched into Safeway, so that's just a grocery store. After playing in the park for an hour, my shopping list was burned in my brain. I picked out 2 heads of cabbage, 17 cents, 1 onion, 8 cents, 2 potatoes, 23 cents, 1 package of chicken thighs and 1 package of wings, $1.47. The price of the chicken would have been thievery of the highest kind, according to Big Ma, who raised chickens down in Alabama, and had to go pull one by its neck, kill it, pluck it, clean it, and fry it. Lastly, most importantly, I dropped a can of stewed prunes into my shopping basket. 49 cents. There was plenty of leftover money to call Ma and Pa and talk for as long as we wanted. Vanetta and Fern pouted as the groceries went in the basket. They even placed a couple of "aw, shucks" and finger snapping at our dinner was placed on the cashier's counter. All the snipping between Vanetta and Fern over Miss Patty Cake were now aimed at new enemies, the real food we would have to eat until we returned to Brooklyn and me. I paid for the groceries and put the change in our pocket. I'd give Cecile the dollar bills and keep the coins for our telephone call with Papa. "Why can't we have pizza?" Vanetta moaned, "or shrimp lo mein?" "Because," I said, enjoying my role as their enemy and big sister, "that's not food for everyday eating." I held up the brown paper bag with its Big Red S. So that's the name of the chapter. That's why it's called this. And I patted it right in the center. This is. So in this whole chapter is about them getting groceries. Big Ma would have been proud of me, but also angry that I allowed it to come to this. I'm sure she expected this kind of living from Cecile. From me, she expected better. Phooey. Double phooey. They could phooey all night for all I cared. Vanetta said, "I hope that you know she won't cook that." So we know that she is Cecile. Cecile's not going to cook for them. "Not in her kitchen," Fern said. So I said, "Well, then I'll cook in her kitchen." Papa's voice poured out of me like warm, steady tap water. I put the key in the door and I said, "Go wash your face and hands real good. Play go fish until I call you for supper." Cecile wasn't in the living room, which meant she was in her kitchen. I didn't want Vanetta and Fern to see how afraid I was of Cecile. I thought about how she planted her body between us and the kitchen door, daring us to take a step further. That she'd rather let Fern dry up of thirst than give her a glass of water with ice. I thought how crazy Cecile was, and that I didn't know her or what she would do next. Now that I could smell the cabbage and onion from the brown paper bag, I lost the feeling of being calm and brave like Papa. I didn't dare walk in, so I called to her. Cecile? It didn't occur to me to use her poet name, Nzila, to maybe soften her up. But that name didn't feel right coming out of my mouth. I dreaded the moment, dreaded the thought of her swinging the kitchen door open and seeing me with a bag of uncooked food. There was no pulling it off. I called to her again, this time louder. Cecile! Her hand slapped against the corner of the countertop hard. In a few stomps, the door swung open and she was looking at me. I took a step forward and hugged the bag. I have to cook supper. She stared down at me and didn't speak. I didn't know what to do or say, so I took the change out of my pocket, all of it, and held it to her. She took it, dropped it in her pants pockets, maintained her long, hard stare. If that was supposed to make me feel afraid, stupid, and small, it worked. Then she spoke. Why don't you go to Ming's? Or Shabazz? We had a Shabazz in Brooklyn. The fish bean pie place run by the black Muslims. I found my voice to say, we can't eat takeout every day. Vanetta and Fern can't stomach it. You can't come in my kitchen making a mess. This is my workplace, and I don't need you in here turning things upside down. I said I don't make messes. Without a lick of sass, I spoke plain and truth. I'd never made a mess in my life, not even for the fun of it. Cecile went stomping and cursing into the kitchen. No one told y'all to come here. No one wants you out here making a mess, stopping my work. I stood outside the kitchen with the Safeway bag held tight to my chest. I'm sure the Safeway S was in the same spot as Superman's Big Red S was, sewn to his costume. I felt it right away, looking out for my sisters, and I didn't feel brave. All the same, I didn't want Vanetta and Fern to see me standing there like a scared dummy holding a bag of groceries. Cecile pushed the door open. Get a speck of grease on my work. You hear? I knew better than to wait for a nicer invitation and walked inside Cecile's kitchen. It was larger than our kitchen back home. Hers had both cooking area and an eating area, which hadn't been set up for eating. There was a long table with only one chair, hers, and what I figured was her printing machine on top of the table. I didn't want to get caught gawking at her and her stuff. I went straight to the sink and started stripping the onion, washing the cabbage, washing the potato, washing the chicken parts until I could figure out what to do next without having to ask Cecile a thing. She hovered her machinery, grunting and cursing. Then she got up, opened a drawer, and threw a potato peeler and knife into the sink. The knife just missed my hand. She didn't look once, but said, Don't go cutting off your fingers. There's no money to take you to the hospital. I felt her watching me work. Thanks to Big Ma, I could skin a potato with a paring knife without wasting a scrap of white potato. I could cut up a whole fryer, too, even though this time I didn't have to. Cecile grunted, What you gonna do with that chicken? I said, Bake it. Frying's faster, she said. I pointed to her papers. Grease. Papa's easy voice just slid right out of me, warm and steady. I could feel myself coming back, my voice, my steadiness. So she's kind of growing in more confidence. What you gonna do with the potatoes? Boil them with the cabbage and onion. There was something about being here with her in the kitchen. I knew what was happening. I had a flash of us. So she's remembering what's happening to her when she was a child. Quiet and in the kitchen, pencil tapping and her voice chanting. I blinked that flash away. I didn't have time to be pulled into a daydream. I kept doing what I was doing, and then I pressed my luck and asked her for some fatback. Another grunt. No fat. So fatbacks is kind of like bacon. Another grunt. No fatback, no salt pork, no pig of any kind in my kitchen. I shook my head. People in Oakland were touchy about pigs. They were touchy about pigs on their plates and the pigs, as Crazy Kelvin called them, in police cars. Back in Brooklyn, Big Ma wouldn't stand for cooking without pork on Sunday. But I couldn't even imagine Cecile and Big Ma sharing a kitchen or living in the same house. Since there was no pork, I used what Cecile had. Butter, salt, pepper, plus the onion. It didn't smell like Big Ma's kitchen in Brooklyn, but it was an aroma of real cooking food. Now that I had my dinner under the way, I wanted to take in Cecile's place of work. See what she was doing, hovering over her machine quietly, carefully. From there where I stood stealing glances, it seemed like she was laying down puzzle pieces. picking up one piece of something and laying it down carefully next to her equipment, picking up another piece and laying it down. Then she'd study the pieces, just the piece that she had completed. She pulled herself into her puzzle laying, and I forgot I was there. I could see why Vanetta and Fern were out loud inside Cecile's kitchen. Cecile was fixed in prayer. I wasn't allowed to be there, but I didn't dare clear my throat, let alone ask her to show me what she was doing. Vanetta and Fern wouldn't have the sense to be quiet. We spread the tablecloth over the floor and sat cross-legged as if we were eating Mean Lady Ming's takeout or fried fish from Shabazz. While Vanetta and Fern ate begrudgingly, Cecile cleaned her plate and left behind 3 blanched. That just means completely white. There's no meat on them. Chicken bones. This doesn't taste like Big Ma's, Vanetta said. Surely don't, Fern followed. I don't know how Delphine felt, but I know I'd be pretty annoyed if I worked really hard and my sisters were just like, well, this isn't great. We should get pizza. Or shrimp lo mein. Cecile reached into Vanetta's plate and took the thigh Vanetta had left. She said to me, that's gratitude for you. I didn't care that they were ungrateful. I told my sisters, get used to eating like this. So I feel like Cecile kind of is trying to connect with Delphine. Like she kind of supports Delphine in this. Vanetta said, I'm going to tell Big Ma and Papa. To them I said, tell. When we were done, Cecile handed me every plate after she'd eaten whatever and Fern had left. You started this mess, Delphine. You clean every dish and spoon. We'd eaten with forks, but I wasn't about to correct her. I just took the forks while Vanetta and Fern disappeared into her room. At least I could look my pa in the eye and say, yes, Pa, I did what you said. I looked out for my sisters. And at least I got Cecile to let me into her kitchen. Then she added, and don't expect any help from me. I said, I don't mind. I just want to make note that Delphine's 11. So Delphine is only 2 years older than you. So I want you to imagine, like, this is a lot to ask someone to, like, a 6th grader to go and make a meal for their whole family all by themselves. She gave another humph and a head shake. We're trying to break the yolks. So a yoke is what goes over like an ox or a horse when they're, like, helping with farming. You're trying to make one for yourself. If you knew what I know, seen what I've seen, you wouldn't be quick to pull the plow. I sort of knew what she meant, but someone had to look out for Vanetta and Fern while we were here. I stuck the pile of plates in the sink and ran the hot water. It wouldn't kill you to be selfish, Delphine, she said, and moved me out of the way to wash her hands. Then she came back to praying over her puzzle pieces. This is important. So I want us to make an inference. So we're not doing a reading journal today. As I told you, you guys are completing a Google form instead. So you're just I want you to write a short constructed response. Why do you think, I want you to write a paragraph about why you think, Cecile tells Delphine to be selfish. She's saying, it wouldn't matter it's okay to be selfish sometimes, is basically what Cecile's saying. So I want you to think about why.